There's something deeply unsettling about the old ways, rituals, superstitions, and beliefs that have outlived their time. But why does folklore, something so tied to our history, fill us with dread? Welcome to the world of folk horror, a genre that delves into the terrifying and the uncanny, where the past refuses to die. Folk horror is a genre of storytelling rooted in rural landscapes, forgotten traditions, and the sinister echoes of folklore. Unlike conventional horror, which thrives on supernatural beings and psychological terror, folk horror is more primal. It evokes fear through isolation, old-world customs, and the inescapable grip of history. It's a horror of belief, a fear that what was once buried can never truly be forgotten. To understand folk horror, we must journey back to its origins. The roots of folk horror stretch deep into the soil of Old England, where the clash of Christianity and paganism shaped centuries of superstition and fear. In medieval Europe, folklore served as both cautionary tale and cultural memory. Stories of spirits in the woods, witches lurking in the shadows, and strange rituals held in the dead of night were passed down through generations. These tales were not mere entertainment, they were warnings, keeping people fearful of the unknown. But what makes folk horror truly terrifying? 3 key elements define this unsettling genre. Isolation is a powerful force in folk horror. The countryside is not a place of escape, but a trap. Whether it's a village untouched by time or a house miles from civilization, folk horror thrives in settings where the protagonist is at the mercy of an unyielding land and its inhabitants. Rituals and forgotten traditions play a key role in folk horror. Unlike modern horror, where fear comes from external monsters, folk horror taps into the terror of age-old practices, ceremonies performed for reasons long forgotten, where outsiders become unwilling participants in ancient rites. The past is never truly dead in folk horror. It lingers, festering, waiting to pull the present back into its dark embrace. A secret buried beneath the village green, a cursed family bloodline, or a seasonal festival with sinister roots, these are the echoes of history that refuse to fade. Though folk horror has existed in oral traditions for centuries, it was the 20th century that saw its rise in cinema. British filmmakers in the 1960s and 70s brought these unsettling themes to the screen in what is now called the unholy trinity of folk horror. These films defined the genre and began a legacy that still endures. Witchfinder General, 1968, Blood on Satan's Claw, 1971, and The Wicker Man, 1973. These films emphasized the horror of isolation, the tyranny of belief, and the creeping dread of the old ways returning. Today, folk horror continues to thrive, evolving in films like The Witch and Midsummer, which explore themes of cults, oppression, and nature's terrifying power. So, why does folk horror get under our skin? Because it taps into something ancient within us, a deep, almost forgotten fear of the land and its secrets. It reminds us that history is not just stories, but something real, something that lingers beneath the surface. And perhaps the scariest thing of all is the idea that the old ways might not be gone. They might just be waiting. Folk horror is the boogeyman in the dark, the primal fear waiting in the closet, or the shadow figure by the bed. Folk horror endures because it speaks to something primal. Our fear of the unknown, our unease with traditions we don't understand, and our suspicion that some things should never be forgotten. But in the end, perhaps it's best to leave some stories untold and some doors unopened. What are your favourite folk horror stories? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. See you soon.